In the summer of 1936, Adolf Hitler built the most spectacular sporting event the world had ever seen. 100,000 people in a stadium designed to impress the entire planet. He wanted the world to see German superiority. He wanted the world to understand that the Aryan race was the master race. And then, a 22-year-old black man from Alabama walked onto the track and ruined everything. If you want to learn English through powerful true stories like this, please follow our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. The links are right below this video. Now, let us go back to understand how the Olympics became the stage for one of the most extraordinary moments in the history of sport and one of the most important moments in the history of race. The Olympic Games had been awarded to Berlin in 1931 before Hitler came to power. When Hitler became Chancellor in 1933, there were immediate calls to boycott the Berlin Games. Jewish athletes in Germany were being systematically excluded from sports clubs. The Nazi government was building its racial state. Was this an Olympics the world should attend? The debate was fierce, particularly in America. The debate in America was genuinely close. Avery Brundage, the powerful head of the American Olympic Committee, argued for participation. He visited Germany and reported that Jewish athletes were being treated fairly. This was not true, but his word carried weight. Eventually, America voted to attend. Other nations followed. 49 countries participated. The Nazi Olympics would go ahead. Hitler understood what the Olympics could do for his regime. He invested enormous resources. The Olympic complex was the largest and most technically advanced ever built. The stadium held 100,000 people. There was an indoor swimming hall, a cycling track, a rowing course, an equestrian facility. And for the first time in Olympic history, the Games would be broadcast on television to public viewing screens across Berlin. The world was watching. That was the point. Hitler also understood the power of spectacle. He brought in filmmaker Leni Riefenstahl to make a documentary of the Games. Riefenstahl was a genius of film technique. She developed new camera angles. She put cameras in pits to film athletes from below. She used slow motion. She created images of athletic beauty that had never been seen before. Her film, Olympia, is still studied in film schools today. The most beautiful film ever made about a sporting event in service of the most ugly ideology. Hitler's theory was called racial hygiene. He believed that human beings were divided into races that were fundamentally unequal. At the top, the Aryan race, fair-haired, blue-eyed Northern Europeans, who were supposedly stronger, smarter, more creative than any other group. At the bottom, Jewish people, black people, Roma people, and others who were supposedly inferior. The Olympics would prove this, or so Hitler believed. Into this extraordinary situation came Jesse Owens. James Cleveland Owens, born September 12, 1913, in Oakville, Alabama. He was the 10th child of a sharecropper and the grandson of enslaved people. His family moved north to Cleveland, Ohio, when Jesse was 9, as part of the Great Migration of Black Americans fleeing the segregation of the South. His nickname, Jesse, came from a schoolteacher who misheard his initials JC as Jesse. Jesse Owens discovered his gift for running at East Technical High School in Cleveland. His coach, Charles Riley, recognized something extraordinary. Riley invited Jesse to train before school because Jesse had to work after school hours. At the 1933 National High School Championships, Owens tied the world record in the 100-yard dash. At Ohio State University, he became a track star. But even at university, he faced segregation. He could not live in the university dormitories with white students. On May 25, 1935, 1 year before the Berlin Olympics, at the Big Ten Conference Championships, Jesse Owens had perhaps the greatest single day in the history of athletics. In 45 minutes, he set 3 world records and tied a 4th. 100 yards, world record tied. Long jump, world record by 6 inches. 220 yards, world record. 220-yard low hurdles, world record. 4 world records in 45 minutes. He had done this despite a back injury suffered just days before, when the American Olympic team sailed to Germany in the summer of 1936. The racial politics were already complex. The United States was a segregated country. Black American athletes were traveling to challenge the master race ideology of Nazi Germany while facing racism. At home, Owens himself was famous in America, but could not eat in many restaurants or stay in many hotels because of his skin color. The Berlin Olympics opened on August 1, 1936. Hitler entered the stadium to a crowd of 100,000 people, giving the Nazi salute. The spectacle was overwhelming. Thousands of athletes, dozens of nations. The Olympic torch, introduced for the first time by the Nazi organizers, burning brightly. The ceremony was designed to make Germany look like the center of civilization. It worked. The world was impressed. The competition began, and Jesse Owens got to work. On August 3rd, he ran the 100-meter final, the most watched race in Olympic history. Owens exploded from the blocks. His body was perfectly efficient. His stride was powerful and smooth. He crossed the finish line in 10.3 seconds, a new Olympic record. The crowd, 100,000 people, many of them German, stood and roared. The fastest man on earth was a black man from Alabama, but it was the long jump that produced the most extraordinary story of the entire games. In the qualifying round, Owens was in trouble. He fouled his first attempt by stepping over the board. He fouled his second attempt. One more foul, and he would be eliminated. Then something happened that nobody expected. His main rival, a German athlete named Karl Ludwig Long, came to talk to him. Karl Long, known as Lose Long, was exactly what Hitler wanted. Tall, blonde, blue-eyed, the perfect physical specimen of the Aryan ideal. He was Germany's best hope for the long jump gold medal. He walked up to Owens, his rival, and offered advice. He suggested Owens place a towel a few inches before the takeoff board as a marker to ensure he jumped well short of fouling. The advice worked. Owens qualified. In the final, Lose Long jumped brilliantly. He broke the Olympic record. On his first jump, he was performing in front of his home crowd, in front of his Führer. He was giving everything. And then Owens jumped, and jumped again, and jumped a final time, with a jump of 8.06 meters, a new Olympic record. Lose Long was beaten, and immediately, before the cameras, before the crowd, before Hitler himself, Long ran to Owens and embraced him. The image of Lose Long, the perfect Aryan German, embracing Jesse Owens, the black American, in front of Adolf Hitler, is one of the most powerful in the history of sport. Long later wrote to Owens, "You can melt down all the medals and cups I have, and they will not be plated gold, of the friendship that I felt for you." At that moment, Long was killed, fighting in Sicily in 1943. Owens attended his son's wedding. Their friendship outlasted the regime that tried to make their friendship impossible. Jesse Owens was not finished. On August 4th, he ran in the 200-meter final. Another gold medal, another Olympic record, 20.7 seconds. And then came the relay. Owens was added to the 4x100-meter relay team, controversially replacing two Jewish American runners. The decision was made by American officials, not by Owens himself. He ran the first leg. The American team won gold. Owens had 4 gold medals. The story about Hitler snubbing Owens, refusing to shake his hand, deserves careful examination. On the first day of competition, Hitler had publicly congratulated German medal winners. The International Olympic Committee told him he must congratulate everyone or no one. He chose no one. He stopped public congratulations. Owens later said Hitler actually acknowledged him with a wave from his box. The snub story was more complicated than history usually tells it. What is undeniably true is the effect Owens had on the games. The American team won the most gold medals. The German team finished second. But the moment that the world remembered was Owens. 4 gold medals, 3 world records, 1 Olympic record, achieved by a black man from a sharecropping family on the very stage that Hitler had built to prove racial superiority. The argument was answered on the track. Other athletes also challenged Nazi ideology. At the 1936 Games, the black American high jumper Cornelius Johnson won gold. Other black American athletes won medals. A Jewish-Hungarian fencer, Ilona Elek, won gold. A Jewish-Hungarian swimmer, Judith Deutsch, refused to compete in protest and was banned from Hungarian sport. The Games produced both heroism and the quiet dignity of those who refused. The 1936 Olympics also produced one of the great technological firsts in sports history. For the first time, a major sporting event was broadcast on television, not to home sets, which barely existed, but to public viewing screens set up around Berlin. Berliners could watch the games without being there. The beginning of television sports broadcasting was here, in Berlin in 1936, another Nazi first that the world would later adopt. When Owens returned to America, he expected a hero's welcome. He got one, partially. New York gave him a parade through Manhattan, but at the reception at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, he was required to enter through the back door, the service entrance, because black people were not permitted to use the front entrance of the Waldorf Astoria. The man who had just defeated Nazi racial theory on the world stage could not enter a New York hotel through the front door. President Franklin D. Roosevelt never sent Owens a telegram, never publicly congratulated him, never invited him to the White House. FDR, who was running for re-election, did not want to alienate white Southern voters by publicly honoring a black man. Years later, Owens said, "Hitler did not snub me. It was our president who snubbed me." The double standard of American democracy, never more visible than in its treatment of its greatest Olympic hero. After the Olympics, Owens struggled financially. He had won 4 gold medals, but had no income. The rules of amateurism meant he could not profit from his achievements. He was dropped from the U.S. amateur athletic program for refusing to continue a European tour after the Games. He raced against horses for money. He worked as a gas station attendant. He ran a dry cleaning business. He struggled for years before finding work as a motivational speaker. But history has given Owens his proper recognition. In 1976, President Gerald Ford awarded him the Medal of Freedom, America's highest civilian honor. In 1990, President George H.W. Bush awarded him the Congressional Gold Medal posthumously. Owens had died of lung cancer in 1980 after decades of smoking. He was 66 years old. Statues stand in his honor. A street in Berlin is named after him. Germany named a street after the man who defeated the master race. The 1936 Olympics also had a darker legacy. Leni Riefenstahl's film Olympia, while artistically brilliant, was also Nazi propaganda. It glorified the German state. It promoted the idea of the strong body as the ideal of civilization. It was used in Nazi propaganda for years. Riefenstahl herself spent decades after the war claiming she was an artist, not a politician. The debate about her legacy and the ethics of art in service of evil continues today. Germany's performance at the 1936 Olympics was actually very strong. They finished second in the gold medal count, behind the United States. Hitler claimed the Games as a German success and in terms of organization and spectacle, he was right. The games were extraordinary, and for many visitors, the Germany they saw was modern, efficient, and impressive. The Olympic Games gave Nazi Germany the international legitimacy that its leaders craved. 1936 Olympics raised questions that have never gone away. Should sports and politics be separated? The International Olympic Committee still officially says yes, but the 1936 Games showed that when a regime is deeply unjust, attending its sporting showcase gives it legitimacy. The same argument has been made about subsequent Olympics in authoritarian countries. The 1936 question has never been fully answered. Jesse Owens himself had complex views about the Olympics and their politics. He opposed the Black American boycott of the 1968 Mexico City Olympics, when Tommy Smith and John Carlos raised their fists on the podium. He believed, athletes should compete, not make political statements. It was a position that many disagreed with, but it reflected his own experience of competing and letting the result speak for itself. What did Jesse Owens accomplish beyond his 4 gold medals? He proved something that should not need proving, but did, that a black man could outrun any man on earth, that athletic excellence has nothing to do with skin color, that the most elaborate state-sponsored ideology of racial superiority could be demolished by one man running and jumping on a hot August afternoon in Berlin. He did not intend to make a political statement. He intended to win, and in winning, made the most powerful political statement of the decade. The Berlin Olympics left a complicated legacy. It showed the power of sport to transcend politics, and the power of politics to use sport. It showed the courage of athletes competing on the most politically charged stage in history, and the cowardice of officials who allowed that stage to exist. It showed the best of human athletic achievement and the worst of human political ideology on the same field at the same time. From Jesse Owens's birth in a sharecropper's family in Alabama in 1913 to his discovery by a Cleveland high school coach, to 4 world records in 45 minutes in Ann Arbor in 1935, to the ship crossing to Nazi Germany, to the qualifying crisis in the long jump and Luz Long's extraordinary gesture, to 4 gold medals on the stage Hitler built to prove white supremacy, to the back entrance of the Waldorf Astoria, the decades of struggle after the Olympic glory faded, to the belated recognition of America's greatest Olympian, to the street in Berlin that bears his name, outside the stadium where he proved that the master race was a lie. Jesse Owens never gave a political speech. He never led a march. He never wrote a manifesto. He ran, and in running, changed more minds about race than any speech could have done. Master race theory did not survive contact with Jesse Owens's shoes. Not because he made an argument, not because he gave a speech, but because he was better. Simply, demonstrably, measurably better. On the track, ideology does not count. Only speed counts. And on the track, in Berlin, in August 1936, Jesse Owens was the fastest human being on Earth, and no theory about race could survive that fact. Jesse Owens was asked once what he thought about running in Nazi Germany. He said, "When I came back to my native country with 4 gold medals, I couldn't ride in the front of a bus. I had to go to the back. But I wasn't invited to shake hands with Hitler either." He understood the irony of his situation with perfect clarity. He had defeated 2 versions of racism in the same summer, and he had done it by being extraordinarily, undeniably human. Thank you for watching this story on Storia English. If you enjoyed learning English through this powerful story, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow our Facebook page. A new story from history, told in clear, slow, simple English. We will see you in the next story.